Stuart, you've had a busy summer. How prepared do you feel for the start of competitive action?
I was speaking about it yesterday. I think you always do a wee bit of a review through stages, and I think to this point, with how much notice you've got obviously coming in as a new manager, new coaching staff, a lot of new players, a lot of players going out, try to prepare for a pre-season trip that wasn't quite in place obviously until I'd come in. And I think we've done really well to this point. Now we don't get any points or placings or anything for that. I just mean simply when you see everything that needs to be done and kind of where you need to get to, I'm pretty pleased that I feel that we've hit a lot of those markers. There's still obviously a number of things from within the football club that you're incrementally trying to adjust and change to how you want them, just how you see it. But no, as I say, in terms of the recruitment side, yet how the timings of getting to work with as many of these players as we possibly can before the first competitive game, having a fair chunk of them away at Holland with us, and then the pre-season games that we've played is probably about as good as I think we can get it to this stage. I'm always a perfectionist. There's always little bits that we would like to maybe try and get one more game in, etc. But we are fighting against it now during the summers with such a short period to build into the new campaign.
How hectic has that recruitment drive been with another 3 players in the last few days?
Yeah, it has been pretty hectic. I think there's different ways to look at it. I've always been someone that wants to try and get their business done as early as possible. I think a lot of times people say, to sit and stay patient. It's not so much that for me. I would always back working with them and spending time with them as getting the best version of players, as opposed to maybe sitting and waiting for somebody that's got 2 or 3 options. You might be number 3 on that list. So I've always kind of wanted to go with the guys that are jumping to come and play for your football club, and they're desperate to come and play for your club. I generally think that they become better players for you. That might be that you weigh up someone better technically or whatever tactically, but I just genuinely feel the guys that want to come here are the best that you're going to get, and as a result I think there's been a lot of hard work behind the scenes to try and make that happen. So it's positive in the sense that we've got people that want to be here, but also there's been a bit of a change in terms of how we've gone about our recruitment, so a lot of good work that's went in to try and do that as well.
You said you maybe would have benefited from, say, another game going into competitive action. You won't take any game for granted, but the first game being against the lowest ranked side in the group, does that help at all?
Nah, I don't think it does. No, you could argue the other way. Does that put a little bit more pressure on because you're expected to win these games? Of course you are. I'm not shirking that. But it's a team in Brora, and we'll probably go on to that in a second or two. It's a team in Brora that I know a lot of the players there, a lot of boys that I've worked with through my time at Ross County, maybe coming through their academy system. I'd spent a little bit of time at Brora when I first came into coaching as assistant manager, and sort of kidded myself on towards the end of my career that I could still play, but I couldn't. So it's a place I know really well, difficult place to go. So it's fair to say that we'll not be misunderstanding what the task is and the challenge is in hand.
Is that quite nice to have that reunion on a personal note?
Nah, I'm not the most sentimental guy when it comes to things like that at all, but definitely people there that I like and I respect, absolutely. For the manager to some of the players, again, I think everybody knows my connection with working with young players. I hope we do. But there's several there that I'd spent a fair bit of time with. I think one that I can see actually that had won the development league with us back in the day, 2016, 2017, somewhere around about that. And it's nice to see these boys still playing at a good level and doing well. So yeah, I know the owner there. I know a lot about the place and the people. Beautiful part of the country. I always look forward to that. It's a place that I've spent a lot of time. So, but very much for me, it's about business and try to win your first competitive game.
Ahead of the first game this season, Stuart, is this when you're at your most positive and at your most optimistic?
Everything's great when the pressure isn't on, isn't it? As you say, but I've kind of have a wee catchphrase in this that we all go through pre-season, everybody's high-fiving one another, the world is great. I think you learn something about everybody when the ball starts rolling, and I think that competitive football comes in, for better, for worse. Sometimes that's really the point where players excel, and we want as much, if not all of our players to start to excel when the competitive football comes. And I've said it time and again, we've sat in front of each other every summer and spoke about the competition. That's why I like the competition. Competitive games to start really early and try and brace ourselves for that league campaign. So I've always been a huge advocate of it.
At most clubs there's wholesale changes during the summer. What's the challenge in getting a new group together and getting your ideas into their heads before the season starts?
I think the biggest challenge you've got is if you don't have a plan. If you don't have a way you want them to play, if you've not profiled them, if we're going to just kind of stumble along this and hope that we find something, I think that's your biggest challenge. Again, but probably in my nature and how I work, it's always about a clear structure, a clear plan, clear identity of what you want your team to look like. That will sometimes alter depending who you're playing, where you're playing, what surface, all that different type of stuff, weather conditions, I always say. But for me, that's the biggest challenge. So if I didn't come in with a plan, I think that's the one where you're never sure how that's going to knit together. But if we've been doing our work, which I believe we have done, and doing our due diligence, we should start to see the fruits of our labour. And fortunately for us, even over the 4 games we've managed to have in pre-season, I've started to see a lot of bits that I like, but also bits that I know that will still take a wee bit of time just to improve on and to start to click. But the buy-in for the players so far has been great, and I'll probably be sitting here worrying in front of you if you don't see that buy-in and that real desire to act out what you're asking of them. But to a man, the players have been fantastic that way.
Because you have so many new players in, do you have to kind of simplify your message to them in terms of making sure they're quickly on the same page?
Not really. I think where we live now in football is that so many players immerse themselves in the game and the tactical side of it. I've always believed in, I think I'm old school with a modern way, if you like. So a lot of my terminology and how I'll speak, I've tried to sync it to how I coach and how I speak in a video room and analysing games of football, one-to-ones with players, but also on the pitch. So there's and why a lot of these guys have been recruited is because of how I think about the game and what that kind of game model looks like for me. So I feel that always completes the loop. There's obviously a really kind of modern twist on that, but I think the demands are simple enough. It's just getting the guys to again buy into that. But as I say, modern football players for me really think about the game. They sort of crave information, they crave detail, and as long as we're giving them that to match, what they require to go and play a game of football, then generally I find that kind of streamlines the whole process.
Have you settled on a captain yet?
I have, yeah. I've settled on a captain, a vice captain. That will be announced officially in front of the players today. It's not that it's a big secret, it's just that will be announced in front of the players today, and then we'll obviously confirm that with everybody else moving forward.
Did you take a few games in the pre-season just to kind of give you an idea of who?
Nah, again, it's probably just been a creature of habit that this is kind of the time scale that I would always do that. I would always work through a similar kind of time scale, but I'd probably worked out at a reasonable stage who that was going to be and who was going to support the captain, and amongst that as well. But it's that age-old adage that we talk about. We're looking for as many leaders as we possibly can, but not all in the same way. We were looking for guys that do it in different ways, and it's fair to say, looking at the group, we've got leaders that do it in completely different ways out there as well, different personalities.
Is there likely to be any more additions?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to bring in at least one more. That's something that we'll look towards, and we'll still try to do a little bit of work just to make sure that we complete that balance to the squad.
In terms of squad availability for this weekend, how many of the new signings do you think are up to speed and ready?
I think we would definitely be able to get minutes from absolutely all of them. We're obviously carrying a couple of injuries, 1 or 2 injuries. Touch wood, it's not. I've seen a lot worse throughout pre-season. A couple of injuries that were already kind of maybe inherited in there as well. So, but from the new signings, there's a couple that aren't ready to play 90 minutes, but I think they're in a position to give us some sort of minutes. But I'll do the same as I've always done. I'll balance the minutes over the 4 games as opposed to just this one particular game.